Tower Hamlets Conservative Party have just announced their candidate for the mayoral elections in October. London Bangla is delighted to meet Neil King.
And I'm delighted to meet London Bangla. Good evening.
Good evening. Neil, please tell us about your experience in grassroots politics.
I moved to the borough as soon as I graduated from university and went to law school in London. So I've lived here now for the best part of a decade. And I've always been politically active. I always think it's our responsibility as citizens to take an interest in politics. And ever since I've been here, I've been involved locally with the Conservatives and in the wider community in Wapping. For example, as part of the campaign to save our tube station when the East London line closure came about. And since then I've fought 16 elections in the borough. I've been responsible for helping in all of them. And frankly, as far as grassroots, particularly grassroots in the Conservative Party, I've been very active for a long time. It's one of the reasons why, having seen what's happening to Tower Hamlets, seen decisions taken by the ruling Labour group I wouldn't have taken, then actually I've become more and more passionate about wanting to do more and more. And there is no job that does more in this borough now than the directly elected mayor. It is the top job in Tower Hamlets politics.
What can a Conservative mayor bring to the people of Tower Hamlets?
Well, the Conservative mayor can really bring two things. First, it's a clean break with the past. We've had the Liberals and Labour alternating here in power, and a lot of people really can't see the difference either of them have made. The Conservatives bring some fresh thinking and a fresh approach. Second thing the Conservative Party can bring are Conservative values. We have many values that much of the community in Tower Hamlets buys into. We're pro-entrepreneurs. We believe that small businesses do things best. That's a feeling I hear echoed, whether it's by stall traders in Chris Street Market, whether it's by owners of restaurants on Brick Lane, or whether it's people starting their own businesses in the Docklands Business Park and Tiller Road Business Park. We also have respect for the family as a unit, which is as true of families throughout the borough, be they living in the brand new developments or the more traditional pre-war blocks, or if they're in the terraced housing, which still luckily exist in a lot of our borough. And it's those sort of values that I think are common to everyone in the borough, and those sort of values that Conservative mayor will treasure, Conservative mayor will champion, and are the sort of values that I think people in Tower Hamlets want to hear.
Are the divisions within the Labour Party good or bad for politics?
Insofar as they help get a Conservative elected, they're excellent news for politics. In terms of what the people from Tower Hamlets really want to see, I think they're a bit fed up of one club of people arguing over prizes that they presume are their own. People want to see their political parties presenting clear manifestos where they know what they stand for and therefore can make an educated choice at the ballot box. What they don't want to see and what people are tired of seeing is the Labour Party constantly tearing itself apart over personalities and over factional issues. When people voted for Labour councillors, as they did in May, and I have to acknowledge that, they expected them to run the borough as a Labour group. They did not want what is now becoming weeks and weeks and weeks of navel-gazing as they decide how it is they're going to run a mayoral selection. It's worth noting, people have to bear in mind that at the end of this process they'll be electing a mayor from a political party to run a £1 billion budget. They may want to pause and reflect whether that person should be a representative of a political party that can't even run their own internal election without having to go through it twice and numerous lawsuits. That's a question that voters will want to be asking themselves in October.
You've hit on some very, very important points. Issues that affect the vast majority of people in Tower Hamlets on a daily basis, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. Again, just going back to that question, what are Neil King's top 3 priorities for the people of this wonderful borough?
Well, within those 3 areas, if I were to pick one thing I'd do in each of them, as far as employment goes, I'd come up with a cohesive market strategy. And the markets are a hidden resource. People don't realise just how many there are, from Roman Road to Whitechapel to Chris Street to Spitalfields. And these used to be the hub of entrepreneurship in East London. One only needs to look at people like Alan Sugar, I know he's a Hackney boy, but one only needs to look at people like that who really built their way out of the borough through that. I think we can use our markets much more cleverly. We can make a differential between markets like Spitalfields, which are where we can capture perhaps the luxury trade, the incomer trade, and markets like Chris Street, like Roman Road, where they're much more markets for the local community looking for the best deal in the best East End fashion. So within employment, I'd look at markets. Within education, I'd be looking at English as a second language. I think I've already gone into that. Within crime, what I'd be looking at there, key policy would be reviewing the council's use of ASBOs and acceptable behaviour contracts.
How would Neil King, as Mayor of Tower Hamlets, work with cross-party colleagues to serve the people and deliver on services?
Well, I won't ignore that there are talents within all the political parties in East London, and yes, I respect the fact that on May the 6th, a majority of people in Tower Hamlets voted for the Labour Party. The next largest group, of course, were the Conservatives, but there were still people who voted for respecting the Liberal Democrats, and I know there are able people in all those parties. I know as well that if elected mayor, I would be facing a council of 41 Labour members, but I think people in Tower Hamlets should feel very comfortable about that. At least with that way, they'd know they wouldn't have an overmighty mayor with an entire council behind him as well. They would act in a way as a check upon me. I would be very willing to talk to any political party about any issue. But at the end of the day, if I were elected mayor, the other political parties in Tower Hamlets would have to respect, again, that the people of Tower Hamlets have made a choice, and that choice was to elect a Conservative mayor. And so they'd have to work with me to implement largely Conservative policies.
One question which we pose to all candidates and all potential candidates that we've met so far has been, does Tower Hamlets need a particular type of mayor? A Bangladeshi mayor, Somali mayor, some of the ethnic minorities, and a competent mayor?
Well, it needs a competent mayor. This is, as I said, a very serious job with a very serious budget. If you get this wrong, there'll be real difficulties for frontline services within Tower Hamlets. As for which section of the community it should come from, it should be an East End mayor for East Enders. I don't make a difference between Somalis, Bengalis, the English, the large Eastern European population who are joining our borough now. All these communities have the same aspirations. I'm not going to use now that they are diverse communities. I don't agree with that. Diverse suggests that they're on different paths, they're heading towards a different destination. They're not, they're varied communities. But actually they all want the same things. They want their children to be educated in a good school. They want a job at the end of the road for their children and themselves, and they want to be safe in their own homes while that happens. They also, in the current climate, want to make sure that the council is counting its pennies and safeguarding their council tax. All of those are things that all of our community want. I think that it doesn't matter what colour skin the mayor has. It may matter what colour rosette they're wearing. I have to think that the Conservatives bring the best opportunities in all those areas, but it just needs a mayor who understands the East End and is willing to work very hard for the East End.
Any final messages for voters and readers of London Bangla?
Well, for readers of London Bangla, I'd say this. Yes, I know that this area doesn't have an enormous history in voting Conservative, but in all of the last few elections, more and more people are. And those who have Conservative councillors speak to their friends and neighbours who live on the Isle of Dogs about the level of service they get and just how many thousands of them turned out and voted Conservative in May. Speak to their neighbours in Limehouse, in Wapping, who now have a Conservative councillor. Don't listen to what other parties say in terms of that we're something to be frightened of. We're really not. We want this borough to be as good as everybody else does. And our councillors have, in their representations of this area, proved themselves to be competent, hard-working and honest brokers for the communities they represent. As a mayor, I would do the same, and I hope that people can trust me with their vote on October the 21st.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oxford-educated Neil King has lived in the borough in Wapping since 2001. He is a criminal law barrister and has served as a Royal Naval Reserve officer. I just want to finish by quoting one of his rivals for the Tower Hamlets Conservative candidate. Mukim Ahmed, who also made it to the final round of selection by the local Conservative, says, "I wish Neil well in his campaign. He is a good candidate for the Conservatives and for Tower Hamlets." Thank you.